Uh, first, everybody, welcome. I'm pretty excited about today, as I've already said. And oh, Christine's here from Denver too, I just noticed. So hi, Christine. So the reason I'm excited is this. Many years ago, a friend of mine asked me to help recruit Chuck Jansen, who's our speaker today, to Keller Williams. And Chuck, I don't know how well you remember that, but I remember it very well. And Chuck and I became very close friends. We're kind of kindred spirits. We both had a desire to speak and present and coach. And Chuck had a very successful real estate career by the time he found Keller Williams. But he also was a very spiritual and religious man who was doing a lot in his church. And so Chuck took advantage, became sort of a coach and a speaker within Keller Williams, taught classes in his market center, and just became a powerhouse on his own. Anyway, the main thing that happened for me is I created this amazing friendship. I remember something that stands out for me is we both have a love for key lime pie. And we've shared a few pieces of key lime pie over the years. Now, I haven't seen Chuck in person now for probably well over 10 years, I would guess, probably right around 10 years. But we still stay in touch. And then he mentioned this to me the other day. We got reconnected because somebody hacked his Facebook and sent me a message. I go, that doesn't sound like Chuck. So I texted Chuck separately and it wasn't him. We got talking. So this forgiveness fingerprint course is something that he designed, and he worked with churches and other groups to bring this to us. And when I started hearing about it, I go, oh my gosh, I always say that when something's coming my way, it's a reflection of what I could most use in my life at that time. And I don't like to use the word, you should hear it, you should have heard it, or you need to hear it. Those are words I don't like to say. I'm saying that when these kinds of things come my way, I know in the words of my father, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So I'm anxious for myself, not just for you. I'm excited. And remember, I've told all of you guys, there's no recruiting on these calls and there's no selling, but Chuck, I want Chuck to sell this. It's only a $25 course, and there may be other things in the future, but you really got to look at this, please, and look at it for yourself and say, how can this help me? Now, remember, this is going to get recorded, and I'm almost going to guarantee you that you'll want other members of your family to watch this. Your children who are above 15 or 16 years old, your friends, people. This is not a real estate specific subject, right, Chuck?
Yeah, but I mean, right. It's good that they know that I've sold, I was a high producer in real estate, had a team. I still have a team. We just sold 2 houses last week, so I'm active in real estate, but this forgiveness challenge has just kind of gotten a life of its own, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. I do teach it in the prisons. I teach it in businesses, how to get along. I teach in churches, so I've taught all over with it. I think that you're going to be intrigued by what has happened to me in the last 10 years. I joke, in the 1960s, you remember we'd come back from summertime and we'd tell the teacher would say, how I spent my summer. You remember that? Those of us that are old enough to know that. And then with this, I want to say how I spent my last 10 years, because it's been 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Okay, well, Chuck, it's all yours. Just tell me what to share and when, and I'll start. Do you want me to get 113 ready, or do you want to start?
Get 113 ready. I'm going to introduce it a little bit.
Okay, good. Go ahead. All yours.
So thank you again. I know a lot of you are very busy, and I really appreciate you being on this call, because it's a kind of a unique, different call. About 10 years ago, I do go to a coach in real estate and life, and I also go to a spiritual coach. And 10 years ago, this priest challenged me to create something on forgiveness. He said, we have 3,000 families in this church, and half of them have somebody that they're not talking to, or they've alienated themselves and they haven't forgiven each other. So he goes, I want you to devise something on forgiveness. I said, Father, I'll paint the rectory. I'll have it done in 2 weeks. It's like, don't make me study forgiveness, you know. He said, no, I think you'll be good. But anyway, so he said, I don't want you to start teaching it. I want you to read about it for a year. So I read books, I listened to podcasts, I interviewed people. And after a year, I came back to him and I said, Father, forgiveness has a lot to do with how do you handle hurt? People are suffering. They're hurt. A drunk driver killed this lady's daughter, only daughter. A husband was beating his wife and they got divorced and she's trying to forgive him. You know, so how do you handle hurt is critical. So I every year the course grew and got better and better. And about 2 years ago, an internet company approached me and said, we've heard about your Forgiveness 101 class. Would you do an internet version of it? And I went, wow, that's kind of interesting, an internet version. So I learned more. And basically what I did is I became a producer. 9 people who've taken my course over the last 9 years, 10 years, I asked them, would you go on camera to tell your forgiveness story? And 9 of them said yes. And I call them my yeah, but faculty. Okay, because when I meet a man and he hasn't talked to his dad for 8 years, and I say, I invite you to make peace with your dad. And you know what the guy says? He goes, yeah, but. Do you know what my dad said to me 8 years ago? You know what he said to me on my birthday? You know, well, I guess you're going to tell me. So, yeah, but is our way of saying why we're not going to forgive somebody. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to ask first, can they do like a show of hands? How many people listening right now have somebody in your family that is not talking to another family member? You just put your hand up. Yeah, quite a few of you. Super. Okay, then, so we're going to show some video clips, and I'm going to just kind of give you the lesson to be learned, but I'm going to let you also pull out your lesson to be learned. So the first video clip is from John O'Leary. Rick, you might have to adjust the volume. John is a professional speaker, and I'm lucky to be good friends with him. And he listened to all 97 videos. I have 97 videos. They average 1 minute and 42 seconds each. Now, when John speaks, I said, you can speak as long as you want, John. So this little video is about 5 minutes and 32 seconds.
Looking back at your life, have you ever done anything that you now realize was a huge mistake? If you're human and listening right now and even somewhat honest with yourself, the answer to that, of course, is yes. We all have. Same here. One of the bigger mistakes I've made in my life, a life filled with many mistakes, was at age 9, I witnessed boys in my neighborhood playing with fire and gasoline. They sprinkled some gasoline on a sidewalk. They would strike a match, stand back 2 feet for safety, very risk averse, throw the match on top, and the liquid would dance to life. And I figured if these guys could do that and get away with it, so could I. So on a Saturday morning, January 17th, 1987, a little boy walks into his mom and dad's garage. They're both out. The house is mine. I bend over a can of gasoline, try to pour some on top of a piece of paper that is aflame. Before the liquid even came out, the fumes pulled the flame into the can, created a massive explosion, and launched me 20 feet against the far side of the garage, changing my world forever. I eventually would find myself with burns on 100% of my body. 87% of those burns were 3rd degree. I'm in the emergency room. I'm laying down on my back and I'm dying. And my mom walks in. And as I remember seeing her come closer to me, I just remember thinking how disappointed she would have been in me, that I caused the fire that burnt down our house, that I'm the reason for these injuries, that I've caused and inflicted pain, not only on her and my dad, but my 5 siblings. Like, I'm the reason for all of this. I'm the reason. And she just kept walking closer to me. She takes my right hand in hers. My hand is still hot. It's damaged. It's broken. Pats my bald head. And she speaks these words to me. Baby, I love you. Baby, I love you. And so I look up at my mom and I remember saying, Mom, knock it off with the love. Am I going to die? Am I going to die? And when I asked her that question, my friends, I thought her answer was going to be something affectionate, something appropriate, something like, no, you're not going to die. We're going to get you out of here today. We're going to swing you through Steak and Shake on the way home and get you a milkshake. That's what I assumed. But instead of giving me what I thought I needed, she gave me instead what I actually needed, which was truth. She looked me in the eyes. She held onto my hand even a little bit more firmly, patted my head one more time, and she said these words to me. Baby, do you want to die? It's your choice. It's not mine. Now, there's kind of two ways we can hear that. One is, as I did that day, cold-hearted, mean, why would she not just promise me the milkshake? That's one way to hear those words. The other is as the grace-filled, faith-filled, love-oriented words that they actually were. She was trying to set me free from something, but she knew that she could not do it for me. I had to take the first step myself. I had to make the next right step. I had to choose not only the path, but my willingness to journey down this thing with her. So I said to her, Mama, I don't want to die. I want to live. I want to live. I want to live. Listen to that again. I want to live. And her response was, good. Then baby, look at me. Take the hand of God. You walk the journey with him and you fight like you have never fought before. She said, your dad and I will be with you every step along the way, but babe, you've got to fight. You've got to want this thing. It was January 17th. It was about 8:15 in the morning in the hospital bed when I took not only my mother's hand and she took mine, but I also took the hand of God and began a 5.5-month journey forward through the hospital, 5.5 months of amputations and skin grafts, pain, struggle, uncertainty, having no clue where this thing might lead. Couple of years of surgery and therapy and recovery that would follow that, and a lifetime of challenges that had followed that. And yet, my friends, if I have not yet rocked you to sleep, then hear these words. That decision 34 years ago today set me free. It was the beginning of the journey to no longer try to do it by myself, to no longer imagine that I could fix this thing, but to recognize that in placing my hand firmly into the hand of Jesus Christ, that he could. That grace could, that love could, that God could. This journey, ultimately, the one you are on as you journey forward over the next 5 days, isn't so much about how you're going to fix yourself. It's about the willingness to recognize that grace can, that faith can, that God can, and that you have a part in it. And your part is saying yes. Your part is placing your hand into God's and then taking the next right step with him. My encouragement as you continue forward is to not try to figure out where this journey is going to take you, but to be a little bit more childlike, to shut your eyes, to put a smile on your face, and to have the confidence and the conviction that God has a perfect plan for you, and that it is a plan filled with healing, filled with forgiveness, and filled with abundant life.
Thank you, John. So he kind of introduces the course. The course is 5 days to forgiveness. So day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. Give me some feedback, reactions. What did you hear?
I needed to hear that today. So that was awesome.
Isn't he beautiful? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. Look at that. She's crying. Yeah, John is a tearjerker.
Yeah. And the message in there about sometimes what we expect to hear versus what we do hear, or expect to get versus what we do get, like that resonated really loud in that message.
It's just amazing. Good morning. I'm new here. Was invited by Sarah, but I just think it just proves one more time what Jesus Christ can do in our lives. So it's just amazing to hear another story.
Yeah.
And experience it, it's even more. Excuse me. Experience it is even more awesome.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. What was his mother trying to convince, or what was his mother trying to accomplish?
I think trying to get him to be in charge of his destiny, to be 100% responsible.
Take ownership. Take
Yep.
ownership. Yeah. Yeah. I play that at the beginning of the 5 days just to kind of invite people in. And then I also say, don't look at this hour that we're 45 minutes we're going to spend, or this course is going to fix you. Look at it more as take the hand of God and see what the Holy Spirit is telling you, or see what life is telling you, because these other 8 yeah, but faculty are just amazing. The other thing I played at the beginning is I want to say this. If you have people in your life that tell you the truth, no matter what, you need to celebrate them, because it is a gift when we have friends who tell us the truth, no matter what. Okay. Next phase, true story. So I golf a lot, and I golf in this golf league, and I'm friends with this guy who had melanoma, and he was dying. We could tell he was dying, but he fought it for years and years and years. Well, one day I get called down to the hospital and to his wife, and we're sitting around the hospital room, and the doctor says, you know, we need palliative care. Larry's going to die, you know. So I talked to his wife and I said, what do we need to do? And I said, call the family, tell them to get here as soon as you can, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So the next day we have a little prayer service. And I just say a few prayers and I bring him communion. It's in our church. But what's most important is this. As I'm leaving, Larry's sister hugs me. And she just like hugs me and she won't let go. And this is pre-COVID. So I'm hugging her and she doesn't know me from Adam. And she whispers in my ear, she goes, can you get Larry's brother to forgive him? She said, would you take Larry's brother out in the hallway and see if you can't get Larry's brother to forgive him? I want to ask all of you, what would be your 30-second speech to Larry's brother? By the way, that was a Sunday. Larry died Monday at 6 o'clock in the morning. So he was on his deathbed. So he had his sister there and his brother. What would your Larry speech be? I ask classes of this because I go, when you go to the doctor's office, they take your blood pressure, they take your temperature. Well, I want to take your blood pressure and temperature on forgiveness. What would your hallway speech be to Larry's brother?
I love you.
That's a choice. I love you.
God is going to take care of you.
That's a very beautiful. God is going to take care of you. That means Larry's brother is thinking about Larry.
Mhm.
I don't know if Larry's brother is that loving, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think I'm stumped, Chuck, and it's very rare that I don't have something to say. I just think that if someone had asked me that first, it would feel like the weight of the world on my shoulders to help. And I'm sure you felt that, right? That you felt, oh my gosh, this lady doesn't know me. And yeah, I mean, Sherry just put a question in there, but when you don't know anything about the story, it's tough to come out and say, you need to forgive your brother. I would probably in some way be curious. That's the only thing that I could think of, honestly, to start with. So
Yeah. It's not so important what I said. What's important is what you are thinking. In other words, what would you tell a dying man's brother who you've now been informed that they've been fighting and they're fighting a lot, and the sister wants them to kind of make peace before they die? So I'm just going to leave it as, what is your hallway speech? Okay, next video is, this is an amazing man. I got to tell you, when I first met him, we talked for 3 hours. Basically, I was told that I should meet Jim Clark. Jim Clark was a high executive at IBM. He had 500 people reporting to him. He was living in a multi-million-dollar house. And basically, his company did not have the proper amount of cash to be on the NASDAQ. You got to have 40% or more cash. And he would always cheat and have 37%, 32, whatever. But anyway, he got caught for white collar crime and he went to prison. And what he did was I went to him and I said, I envision, Jim, that I'm going to be with your family, taking a picture, smiling someday because your kids and your wife are going to forgive you. And he said, you're full of crap. Well, guess what? Jim is like an orphan. His kids left him, his wife left him. And on Christmas Day, 2 years ago, he had, or maybe, 2 years ago, he had nothing to do. So he took my entire class. It takes about 5 hours to take the whole class. So with that introduction, let's play Jim Clark, went to prison for white collar crime. He's trying to forgive himself, and he thought he knew forgiveness, but he didn't. Go ahead and play.
Well, welcome to Leavenworth Prison. Now, that's something you hear every day. So when I was 52 years old on August 31st, 2012, I reported to Leavenworth Prison, was there almost 4 years, forever. And through that process, 80% of the people that are, in this case, guys that are in prison, after 2 years, they get divorced. So I've got divorced. I lost my family. I have 3 children. And really, I'll tell you, I never had the Forgiveness Institute class, didn't know anything about forgiveness. I just prayed. And at the same time, I was always that kind of needy. Like, I miss my children. I miss my ex-wife. Can't we connect? Can't we do something? In fact, I used the faith like, well, we're Catholic. You should forgive me. So let's forgive me. And you know what? It doesn't really work that way. And then I ran into Chuck. Chuck, and right before Christmas, and he kept me going on the Forgiveness Institute. And over the holidays, because I'm alone during the holidays, I did a lot of research and read a lot of things on the Forgiveness Institute and the whole, hurt feelings, hurt deeply. And I learned something. I know it's hard to imagine, after you've been through so much prison, I really didn't understand forgiveness. I thought I did. I had it right here. It wasn't here. And one of the rules of forgiveness was hurt people hurt people. The other rule is the closer you are, the more you hurt. And it turns out that, I didn't really understand till then. We were such a close family and my children were so close to me that I hurt them so deeply. I just finally understood it.
You stop it.
What that does, it changes everything. It changes the way you think.
Chuck?
So nobody visited him in prison for 4 years. His kids didn't, and his wife didn't. Then happened, and then his grandma died. Listen to the next story.
It changes the way you feel. It gave me wisdom and understanding. And then at the same time, come January 2nd, my mom passed away. Now, my mom was 95 years old, Rosemary Clark, great lady. But around that time, all three of my children reconnected with me, but in particular, my oldest daughter. And she called me, and the way I sounded on the phone was different. I first said, pretty heroic that you picked up the phone and called your dad. And I could just tell by the way she sounded that she'd never heard me like that. Now, is it all an epiphany? Is it all kumbaya? No. Got a long way to go. But I'm smarter. I'm better. I'm ready to take my forgiveness journey more seriously and really have some of the tools for me to think about. I know Allison talked about words help, hurt feelings, hurt deeply, or drop it, leave it, let it go, or change agent angel, or survivor mentality. Those words are riveting, because it helps you put some terms on how to think through this thing. It's difficult. Forgiving people in your family, forgiving your father, forgiving your husband, forgiving the people that hurt you deeply is very difficult. I have a much better appreciation for that now. I don't have a solution, but I'm on the adventure and I'm very optimistic.
What did you hear?
Well, I personally I love that he didn't tell us he didn't blow pixie dust at us and say how great everything is, that he's just working on that. Yeah, Melissa Sanguinetti said humility. Chuck, Sherry Mason said she took ownership. I also wanted to read you, Chuck, that earlier Sherry had said, what does Larry have to do to earn your forgiveness? Because you have a gift to give him right now. Will you hold on to it or let it go? So that was from before.
That's
Also,
beautiful, Gary. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and Betty Fernandez, I know you're not on camera, but you had a hand up for a while. Was that raising your hand? Earlier, or did you
no,
have a question?
I was trying to find the hand to raise my hand about somebody that hasn't forgiven
doesn't talk of
someone.
someone,
And
right.
sorry, it took me a while.
That's okay. That's all right. Good.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and if you guys want to, other than during the video, just unmute yourself and talk. Chuck is just one of us, so
Yeah, oh, yeah.
happy to do that.
This is, I say forgiving is not 1 + 1 is 2. It's calculus. It's not math. You know, it's difficult. And you got to understand, it takes a long time. But half of you out there totally get forgiveness, and the other half are still learning about it. And my hope and prayer is that by learning some of these terms and listening to some of these stories, you can either be a change agent angel, whereby you help somebody forgive somebody, or you yourself go through a process where you're going to forgive somebody. But yeah, Jim is beautiful, and you're going to hear from Jim later on in the class. I got to brag Jim a little bit. He is the most amazing man in application of principle. Okay, the principle is hurt people, and that if you forgive, you're not weak, you're strong. Only strong people can forgive, and if you forgive, you're heroic. So it's interesting. In the past, if his daughter would have called him, he would have said, "Hey, thanks a lot, honey. You didn't visit me once in prison." You know, he's full of anger. Hurt people, hurt people. I tell people that we are called to be thermostats, not thermometers. A thermometer just measures the temperature in the room. A thermostat gets in touch with your feelings and your anger and your hurt and your suffering. And he did that over Christmas as he watched the class. So when she called, did you see what he said? He said, "I can't imagine how heroic it was that you called me." Now, he told me that he could hear the wind come out of her, like, wow, Dad's different, you know. Then when he went home to the funeral, his brother hasn't forgiven Jim for what he's done to the family, because he went to prison, you know, federal prison. And the priest knew the family, and he says, "Hey, where's Pete?" And Jim says, "Father, give Pete some space. He's on his own journey and he's working things out." He said his two sisters looked at him like, "Where's Jim, and what'd you do with Jim?" You know, but what I said is, Jim, and by the way, Jim would not let me tell that story about the funeral for a year later. I never repeat a story unless I have permission from the person to tell the story. Okay, but it's beautiful, Jim. So my point is this: hurt people, okay? And if you don't acknowledge, own, and process the hurt owns you. This next one is Kim, very intelligent lady, married for, I don't know, 30, 35 years. Her father was alcoholic. Can you imagine how many people listening today are living with somebody with an abusive behavior of some sort or another? And Kim took the forgiveness class, and she was amazed. She ended up taking care of her father in his old age. But listen to Kim do a good job of getting in touch with her hurt.
I hurt for many, many years. I had a childhood full of anxiety due to my father, who I would call undependable, unreliable. You never knew when he was going to show up, which caused a lot of tension between him and my mom. And we lived as a family of tension. So I was very
Did anyone else lose sound?
Yeah, I think Rick muted it.
I did.
Rick, when you muted, I think we lost the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 1 second.
It's okay. But any of us that have lived with somebody with an abusive behavior or an addiction, it's very challenging, and we're called to forgive them. Rick has been on a lot of calls all morning, so he might just need a quick little personal break. Selena?
Yeah, my guess is that we've both been on since about 7 o'clock this morning.
Right.
So-
Hey, do you mind if I take the opportunity to introduce the next speaker after this?
No, go ahead.
So I met Jermaine Wilson, and you can Google him. You can write down his name, Jermaine, Jermaine Wilson. Okay, he went to prison in Leavenworth. Leavenworth, Kansas is a federal prison, and it's one of the places I teach. But he also, later on, he became mayor of Leavenworth, Kansas. I mean, do you realize how unbelievable that is for an ex-con to get the vote of the town to become mayor of a city where he went to prison? So
Impossible to deal with and an unhappy way to live, a miserable way.
Did you guys not hear that?
No, when you
no.
muted, we lost it.
it's okay.
Oh.
Yeah, when you put yours on mute, it put her on mute.
Oh, darn it. I did
That's
not
all
know
right.
that.
You want to start it about, go about 25 seconds into and you can hit replay video.
I got it.
Okay.
All undependable and reliable. You never knew when he was going to show up,
Yeah.
which caused a lot of tension between him and my mom. And we lived as a family of tension. So I was a very anxious child, didn't really understand why. It wasn't until I became an adult and I got therapy, I got help, and realized how much of an impact my dad had on my life. Once I realized that I was so very angry.
Michaels, do you need anything?
And mainly because he continued to act that way. He continued to not show up when he said he would, or we'd make plans and he'd back out at the last minute. And I would be so hurt and so angry and so upset. So the way it would come out was emotionally, I would just rant. And emotionally, I would be so upset. I would rant at my husband. I would complain, I would cry, I would try to figure out why he was acting this way. I would wonder what I had done wrong. And I didn't do this in front of my little kids at the time, but it affected my mood and it affected who I was. And I was just had this underlying anger for years at him. I had horrible stomach issues in my younger adult years. And then after we had our children, it just all bottles up inside and I let it out every once in a while. You know, I got angry at my dad. I yelled at him a couple times and he didn't think he did anything wrong. So it was like yelling at a brick wall, which is so frustrating that it was just impossible to deal with and an unhappy way to live, a miserable way to live.
Thank you, Kim. What did anybody hear? Anybody want to comment or put your hand up?
Don't you hate when they all talk at once, Chuck?
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. In the forgiveness process, you've got to get in touch with your feelings. You got to get in touch with your hurt and what you're suffering. Because once we call it, I like acronyms, I'm sorry, but I go AOP. It's not AOC, it's AOP. Acknowledge, own, and process. Acknowledge, own, and process your hurt. And if you don't AOP, acknowledge, own, and process your hurt, the hurt owns you. Okay? And remember, you're called to be a thermostat, not a thermometer. Okay? Play Jermaine Wilson, the next one. It's 217, I think. Oh, I should tell you, the course has like day one is 101, 102, 103, 104. Day two is 201, 202, 203, 204. So each day it takes about 40 minutes to watch the day. Okay. And then at the end of the day, I have the podcast of the day. And the podcast of the day is because a lot of parents would come to me and they'd say, hey, I'm tired of my kids coming home at Christmas and fighting, or coming home at Thanksgiving. And I'm just tired of them fighting. What can you give me? They go, my daughter won't take an online class. My son won't take an online class. And I go, why don't you take each one of them to lunch separately? And then ask the daughter, how has your brother hurt you? And shut up and listen. And then take the son to lunch and say, how has your sister hurt you? And once people get to AOP, acknowledge their hurt and their feelings, they're more apt to become a thermostat. So I said to the mother, please just listen to your children's hurt, acknowledge it. Don't judge it. Don't validate it. Don't take sides. Just listen.
Hey,
Okay.
Chuck, can
Yeah.
I ask a quick question? I'm a little slow sometimes. I know it's
That's all
surprising.
right. No, you're not.
Seems so freaking intelligent, but I don't get how to be a thermostat. I understand how we can be thermometers, meaning just showing our temper or our temperature. But how do we be a thermostat? What do you mean
A
exactly?
thermostat is where, like, a drunk driver killed my son, and I'm very angry for a long time, and I want justice. You know, like somebody says, you should forgive that driver, and they go, yeah, but he don't deserve it. He was drunk and he killed my son. So if you're going to spend your whole life being a thermometer, that's not good. Someday you got to be a thermostat, whereby you say, yes, I'm hurt. I have a right to be hurt. I have a right to be angry, but there comes a time when you got to pull the skirt up, you know, face it and say, I don't want to spend my life being a victim. I want to be a survivor.
Okay,
So we're called from victim to survivor. Now we're cheating. We're getting into day 4, but
All
that's all right. So does that make the difference between we're called to be a thermostat? In other
Right.
words, feeling, we all have a right to get feelings. Feelings are important. I'm married 42 years to the same girl. I love my wife. Feelings is why, I mean, I was very in love with her when I first met her. And, you know, feelings are important, but we should not live our life as our feelings. We have to become thermostats.
okay.
This next guy, Rick.
Go ahead.
Wait a minute. And then when do we have to quit by? Quarter till?
No. We got till 3 minutes till.
Oh,
2 or 3
good.
minutes.
Let's
till.
get him in. This guy.
People in life say they truly forgive,
First of
but
all,
they end the words out with,
go ahead.
What? What's the matter?
No, I want you to say that Jermaine was a loving, good man in prison, and that's why this prisoner told him something that he never told anybody his entire life.
Okay, cool.
This guy became mayor of Leavenworth.
So many people in life say they truly forgive, but they end the words out with, but. I forgive, but. There was this guy that I knew who had a very, very serious sex crime. And everyone knew what he was incarcerated for. And he kept lying, he kept making excuses. But then he told me something one day, pulled me to the side and said, man, this happened to me. And it's hard for me to let go. But in front of everyone, he made it seem as if he had it all together. He had moved on. He had completed the classes that was required for him by KDOC. But deep down, he didn't let go. He held on to that excuse. He wasn't able to forgive himself because he was once a victim of it. And it was too difficult for him to let go and move on.
Wow. I've got a friend who's a producer, and I said, that minute and 1 second, you can't rehearse it. Oh, by the way, none of these people are paid actors. They are all Christians. They follow Christ. And when they asked me what to say, I said, just tell your story. Tell the story. But isn't Jermaine beautiful? I mean, my God, it's beautiful. Do you understand what happened? Oh, by the way, in prison, they will alienate sex offenders. It's interesting. Of all the crimes, you can go into prison and say, I shot somebody, or, I did this or that, I robbed 2 banks or whatever, and you're accepted. If you say that I sexually abused a child, they alienate you in prison. And what's sad is this man went to prison for abusing a child, and he was abused as a child. So if we could just let people hold their hand while they have these wounds, if somebody would have just done what Jermaine did for him in prison, he finally got to admit it. And once you admit a sin or a shame or a terrible past, it no longer owns you. Anyway, wasn't that a beautiful minute and 1 second by Jermaine Wilson? He wrote a book and it's coming out, but Jermaine is wonderful. He's a beautiful friend of mine. He is so alive. I said, God is going to, in fact, his birthday was 2 days ago, but God's going to do wonderful things with Jermaine.
So Chuck, your next one is 253, but all I see is the 253A, that's 37 minutes.
37. Oh, really? 37 minutes? Okay, go to what's the one after 253?
312.
Yeah, play cue up 312.
Okay.
But before I move on, any questions or comments or any stories or any? Do we need a joke or something?
No, I just feel like I'm new and I don't want to take all the time, but this is very touching and very true. My husband was murdered. My late husband was murdered over 16 years ago. And although I never held resentment towards the people who actually shot him, I was very resented to his friend who was with him, for whom my late husband, in a way gave his life for, because he took off running when they were being robbed. And that caused, well, this is the testimony of the other friend who was with him, that he said, my husband said not to kill him. So they turned around and killed him. And it took me a long time, and it was really difficult to forgive my husband's friend. But the grace of God is just amazing, because only through Jesus, I've not only been able to forgive him and the man who caused an accident a year and a half ago on me, that put me unable to work. And instead of, I was complaining to God about it, and like, why this? And really angry at the driver. But then God made me see that, if he was high or if he was drunk or however he was, it was because he was suffering inside. And that just lifted the anger away from me. But as you're talking and putting all these testimonies, I'm also seeing, through those processes, how my behavior changed and how I've hurt other people, my children and my family, because all the anger I had inside of me. So it's just really, the emotion I have today is more of and the tears are more of gratitude for what Jesus Christ has done in my life.
That's a big hug.
Thank you, Sarah, for inviting me today. And I didn't even remember this, but then all of a sudden I got my phone and I saw it, and I thought, well, I'm gonna join and see what this mastermind is about. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much. Your anger and resentment was real. So don't beat yourself up too much. That's common. But thank God that you found Christ, and Christ helped you go through the process.
Oh yeah.
And did you hear her language? Did you hear what she said? She said, who knows? He might have been drunk or he was hurting. What happens in this world is hurt people all over the place. They really do. And the only way that we got to hold the hand of these people to move them through the process, but thank you. That was very kind of you and courageous of you to share that. Thank you so much.
Wow. That was amazing.
Well,
amazing.
we have to give honor to the one who deserves it. So about him.
Give glory and praise to God. What I say, I have a strong faith in God, and I do give glory and praise to God. What I would like to think is that God kept changing my heart and changing my stories, that I thought I was creating a course, Forgiveness 101. Oh no, I was watching a course unfold to me. In other words, these people just came into my life, and so I became a witness rather than a creator. That's really, really important. I am not the driver of this bus. God's driving the bus. I just happen to be on the bus, and I happen to hear a lot of amazing forgiveness stories. So So I got to tell you this next story. So in Kansas City in May of 2017, there was a murder at 6:30 in the morning. A man was walking his dog and he got shot. And everybody knew about it. Everybody heard about it. Okay. And it was all over the news for months. And I'm teaching a one-night class on forgiveness. And who walks in? The man's wife and his daughter. Oh my God. I looked at him and I thought to myself, I outpunted my coverage. You know, in other words, what am I going to say to help the wife of somebody who just got murdered months ago and the daughter? So I have this little prayer. I say, empty me of me, fill me with you. Empty me of me, fill me with you. So I met him at the back of the room and I gave him a handout. And then as I walked up to the podium, I said, I wonder what God's going to do tonight, because I don't know what the heck to say to this lady and this daughter. So that's how I met Allison Darby. Earlier in day one, she gives a 3-minute introduction talking about the hurt that it comes when a man shoots your dad, an innocent victim. So Allison took the course and we spent 4 years working on it. So don't think that this stuff happens overnight, but this next minute and 30 seconds is the most beautiful minute and 30 seconds in the whole course. Now I'm going to read from my book. So in my workbook, I have each module. There's 12 modules. And the module that Allison is going to refer to is this. I'm reading the truth from module 5. To forgive takes great strength. It's a heroic choice. It's difficult to fight your emotions and make the difficult decision to forgive. Now listen to this. Justice is different from forgiveness. Justice is for societal order. Like the man who shot her dad, he deserves to go to prison. That's justice. But forgiveness is something different. Listen to how Allison does it a lot better than Chuck can say it. And she talks about, and by the way, she couldn't look at the camera. So she's looking at me, I'm in a chair. And Allison does this, and she says this so true. Could you play it, Rick, please?
So forgiveness is really a choice, and it's obviously not easy for anyone, but you have to make the effort, right? You have to put one foot in front of the other. And for me, I couldn't carry the burden of hating someone or having an angry heart every day because it feels so heavy. And to me, that's a punishment to myself, right? This person doesn't even know me. Am I going to let him take my life too? No, I can't do that. So I had to choose, right, myself and my faith and my family, and to move forward. And I have to choose it every day, because you make that choice, but you have to make it a lifestyle.
A lifestyle.
You know, it's not one day, it's the rest of your life. And I will not lie, there are days when I do feel a heavy heart, or we have to go to court. And I find myself getting ready, you know, at home to go there, and I do feel anxious, or I do feel unsettled. I mean, I feel like that's very natural. You know, and we're in the same room, the same courtroom, and we're breathing the same air, and he's maybe from you to me, and my heart does race. I mean, it's a feeling of anxiety, I think.
It's the emotions.
He probably doesn't know I exist. He probably has no idea who I am or who my family is. But I know who he is, and he's present in my life. But I have to make a choice for him to not control my life. I have to make the choice to live a free life, and to live a life where I have a lot of hope.
Wow. Any comments?
Hey, this is Sarah. I, like Rebecca, I also, many years ago, my brother was murdered in New Zealand. So I definitely, and that's something I've always struggled with, that forgiveness aspect. But I am also Buddhist, and I've been practicing Buddhism for over 20 years now. And one of the things that one of the phrases I'm going to paraphrase is, you know, to not forgive is to take the poison yourself. So you're not hurting anybody else, but you're literally poisoning yourself by holding on to whatever it is that needs to be let go of. And then just one other quote, real quick, from earlier. You know, we have a quote that, you know, when you are focus on being victorious, that every cell in your body will orientate itself towards success. But the moment you say, oh, this is never going to work out, your body will also in turn do the same exact thing and make you correct, self-fulfilling prophecy. So I really think that that kind of like ties back to forgiveness and kind of like your mindset towards it. So I just wanted to share that.
Sarah, thank you for sharing and welcome you. Forgiveness is for Buddhist, Muslims, non-believers, believers, white, black, Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, everything. Forgiveness goes across the board. Forgiveness is not prejudice. But Sarah, thank you for sharing that. It's a beautiful quote. To forgive, to not forgive is like taking poison, hoping the other person dies. And I love your comment about once you go to be victorious, your whole body and spirit and soul works towards that good end. And when you choose to be a victim, it does the opposite. Anyway, if you go to my website, yeabut.org, I can tell you this book is good. Bible studies groups do it, prayer groups do it, sisters, brothers do it. They can be in different cities and taking the book, and it has a QR code. So all the videos are here. So you can download it in your phone and take it with family members in other cities. But this is a great book. They're teaching it in the prisons, and the prisons love it. The course that Rick's referring to is a 5-day course. That's $25. This is $19. And the more you buy, the cheaper it is. Or I can't remember, but trust me, it's good. But Rick, I got to say, I thank you. You had two beautiful people share. And I thank you for sharing, Sarah. And then the other lady, I didn't thank you for sharing. And thank the other lady that invited her. But Rick, do we have to wrap it up? I don't want to go.
We're on number 323.
Okay,
We got time.
you got time? Great.
Yeah.
Go ahead and show it. Play it.
So this is the same lady, right, Chuck, again?
Right. Now, you remember it took her 4
I
years.
know
to
that
get
forgiveness
there.
is hard. There's nothing easy about it. It makes you very vulnerable. And I honestly think that forgiving someone that you know personally is much more difficult to do than forgiving someone who you've never even really met, right? I think about like a mother-in-law or a father-in-law or a sibling. Like if something happens, in that kind of relationship, that's tricky, that's personal, like that could hurt. And so that's not easy to just say, I'm gonna forgive that person and move on. That is a difficult road to navigate. And I still deal with those types of situations all the time. And I find that actually more difficult for me to navigate that type of road. But what I do know is once you start to work on those relationships that really do mean a lot to you because you care about the other person, that you will feel so much lighter and so much better, because who wants to walk around carrying a box of trash with them, which is all the feelings of anger and hatred and bitterness? Nobody wants to carry that. You want to walk around with the lilies, the beautiful white lilies that make you feel, like you're glowing inside, like you feel a relief. You feel that they're beautiful. You want that. You don't want the trash. You want the lilies.
You don't have to agree with her, but what she's saying is it's harder to forgive family members than to forgive a man she didn't know who shot her dad. I got to tell you, Jim Clark was in the back of the room. Rarely did I have somebody else in the room, but Jim was so anxious to meet Allison. He asked permission, and he's in the back of the room going, yes, I agree. He goes, would you tell my kids that? But anyway, I'm talking too much. Any comments, any reactions?
I understand the feeling about not forgiving family, it took me 6 years after my mom died to forgive her. So I know how that feels.
I have to tell you, one of the things we teach in the class is forgiveness in life is hard and difficult. Forgiveness in death is harder and more difficult.
Yes.
It's hard to forgive someone who you have to forgive who has died.
Yes, it is,
Yes.
certainly is. But
You're
I,
right.
like everybody else, I go to my chapel and pray, and that's where I get my relief.
It's really hard. So
Mhm.
congratulations on your journey. It's not easy. That's
No.
why I invite audiences when I public speak, please consider doing it now. I have a George story that's a true story. It's 3:10 or 3:08. I forget, it's day 3. We ran an 8-minute version of it and a 5-minute version, and we let 40 people vote, and 38 of the people said we want the longer version. Because I try to keep all my videos less than 2 minutes. But this George story is a beautiful story. It's a true story that happened to me. And I knew George really well. And anyway, you can, if you get the course, you can get it, but we can play it some other time, Rick,
Yeah.
if you have me back.
So can we end with 5:17? Is that a good one to end with? That's what you had on the list.
Yeah, if you want, you can end with it. I can
Yeah.
tell you, Spencer went to jail 5 times and he found Jesus Christ in jail. And listen to this story. Now, it talks about the you know, do you understand what's the word? Embrace your, I forget what, hold on. Well, go ahead, play the tape.
Okay, here we go.
Embrace the paradox.
Wait a minute, can't find it. Let's see.
This is a man I met through my prison ministry, been to jail 5 times. And the 5th time he read a book and he met Jesus Christ and he got introduced to paradox, that the first shall be last and you shall serve the people who you hate.
Here we go.
Well, the other thing Jermaine and I want to talk a little
no,
about is
that's
Chuck,
not
the
it.
founder of this course.
What's that?
You don't want
You know,
this.
when he first came to me,
No,
Yeah, no, they bragged me. Go to a different one. Go to
4. I have 4:15, 4:16, or 4:17. Which would you prefer?
you know what? I would go the 2-minute one with Jermaine, 4:16.
Okay, let me get to that.
He talks about don't be a victim. We're cheating into day 3.
Okay, that's all right. 4:16. Here we go.
So after going through the Forgiveness 101 course
Okay,
with
Allison.
Mr. Jansen, I learned something really critical, really important that changed my whole mentality about the experience I was going through, which is that we can all play the role of a victim. And we do that because it's comfortable and it's safe. And you can make excuses for your behaviors in yourself and people just go with it. But eventually you have to step into the role as a survivor. And when you do that, you're brave and you're daring and you own your story and you tell it and you let people know how you're feeling and how you're really doing. And it was important for me to be a survivor, not a victim, because I wanted to model that. You know, for my family, I'm a preschool teacher. So for my families in the preschool, you know, I want them to know that they have a teacher who is living a full life, you know, who's modeling that, and who's owning her story and using that for good.
You want to play 4:15?
Let's see.
What I do,
I think I'd rather you do a wrap up about.
Okay, here's
Yeah,
what I
'cause we're
do.
gonna-
Yeah.
So
in-
Chuck,
Yeah.
we always send the email out. We're probably gonna do it a little sooner this time. And I want to make sure we'll put in yabut.org and from yabut.org, they can go and get all of the resources. And then of course, you know, if they want to read, do you want me to put your information in there if they want to
Yes.
reach out to
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you, it's, in fact, I'm a realtor, Chuck Jansen at kw.com. So Chuck, CHUCK, JANSEN at kw.com. I welcome your comments and feedback and stories. I welcome it. If you want the book is say $20. And if you want the class, it's $25. Email me if you have a group and I'll kind of mini coach you how to do it and stuff. But I'm telling you, at class, I would bring 2 10-pound bowling balls. And I taught the principle of that once you forgive, you're free. All the weight is lifted off of you. And I make them walk around the room 5 times with the 10-pound bowling balls, you know, because here, forgive to become free. You're free. Once you're free, people go, wow, I can't believe it. I can't believe I carried around that for so long. So I invite you. First of all, I thank you, Rick, by the way. You look great. You look good. You can tell you're healthy. You're eating well. You exercise well. You got an aura to you. So thank you. Thank you for having me on. And then thank everybody else that checked in. And then we'll kind of, anything else I need to say or do?
No, you're all good, Chuck. I love you very much, brother. Always have. This one really hit home. I hope it did for all of you. Let me gather myself. Next call, 2 weeks from today, we're having somebody on CPG chat CPG, whatever it's called, the AI thing, the artificial intelligence. It's a big deal going on in real estate. This guy's an expert on it. I hope you guys will use this stuff. Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all. God bless you.